Hi everyone, Savannah Tree Foundation Field Manager Jake Henry here, and today we're doing another tree forensics video. You know, I love puzzles and I love trees, so what could be better than a combination of the two? Now, I'm going to point out some interesting things here. I'm not going to tell you what actually happened, but we're going to look at some interesting characteristics in this scene, and maybe we can figure out what actually happened here. And maybe you'll figure it out before the end of the video, so this is kind of a fun experiment here. So the first thing to notice is we have a pretty young live oak right here. So this tree is, maybe 5, maybe 10 years old. It's pretty young. So that's the first interesting thing. Now, live oaks, you may already know this, are pretty shade intolerant. They like lots of sunlight, so typically don't plant these underneath the canopy of other live oaks, like over there. So there's your first hint. The next hint is these two trees right here. Now, normally on a live oak branch, we've got some nice dense canopy, nice sort of branch form, and most of the leaves are kind of out near the ends of limbs that come off. But if you look up here, we have lots of green growth all along that limb. And the same thing on the back side of this tree. This one's a little hard to see because there's so much. The branch, or the main trunk actually extends out over there. Lots of new green growth there, lots of new growth there. So all of that green growth that we see along that branch and along the trunk here is called epicormic sprouting. So essentially what happens is the limbs have already formed and these pop up afterwards. And usually that's an indicator of some type of stress, or potentially new sunlight has been added where there previously wasn't. So these trees kind of shoot out these epicormic branches and are able to take up that sunlight. Now, those branches aren't true limbs, so they're not connected to the center of the tree like a normal limb is. These are just formed right beneath the bark, so they're actually quite a bit weaker than a normal limb. But as I said, one of the ways that they pop up is an addition of new sunlight. So there's your second hint. Now, the third hint that I'm going to give you is right here. We have our brick sidewalk that goes all the way here through the square. Now, if we look right here, this area is actually pretty lifted up. There's a lot of waviness to the sidewalk here. Now, that's something that you typically see with tree roots. So there's your third hint. Okay, if you haven't figured it out, I'll tell you. So there was actually a pretty large tree here that was knocked down during Hurricane Matthew. So that was about 4 years ago. Now, from the pictures that I found on that tree, it seemed like it actually did have some root rot. So, you know, live oaks are incredibly strong trees, but if it has some root rot and, you know, with a hurricane as strong as Matthew, trees can come down. So essentially what happened is when you lose such a huge tree, all of a sudden, all of this open space is now providing sunlight down here. And so that's really good for this young tree here that was recently planted. That was probably planted just after Matthew. And that's actually what ends up causing the epicormic sprouting on these tree branches up here. So it's kind of a fun forensics. You know, these aren't normal branches. We wouldn't expect this as the tree grows, but with this sudden addition of lots of sunlight, these trees want to take advantage of that, and it's actually really good for this tree here. Now, one other thing to note is they didn't plant this tree exactly where the other one was. It's probably for a couple reasons. One, we don't want the sidewalk to be lifted again. We want to try to avoid that, so it's a little further back. And the other thing is those roots can stay in the soil for a very long time. It can actually take quite a while for those roots to break down and decay. And so we want to make sure that this new tree has lots of growing space. So we want to place it a little way away from where that last tree was, just to help it out a little bit. But I hope you enjoyed that tree forensics. I sure did. Thank you all so much for watching, and stay tuned for more videos. Take care.